A good afternoon, viewers of Civic Space TV. The Youth Roundtable is back. My name is Matanda, and I'm standing in for Toko. Feels nice to be back. Maxwell says everything stands and falls on leadership. And so everything we see in our society, whether it is to do with governance, we look to leadership. But we also know that if you want to know the future of a forest, you look at the emerging trees. And in Uganda, in terms of leadership, if we are looking at emerging trees, we look at the Uganda National Students Association, institutions like the National Youth Council, among others. Today, at the Youth Roundtable, we are flashing a light on the Uganda National Students Association, UNSA, with a view of understanding its current status and how it feeds into the governance and political issues in the country. Yesterday, unfortunately, we lost some people to bomb blasts in town. We condole with those who lost their loved ones, but ask you who are living to remain vigilant, inform security agencies about any suspicious people and actions, avoid crowded places if you can, and do everything as a citizen to see that we are all safe as our security agencies try to do their job. But on this panel today, to flash a light on UNSA, I have very capable leaders. I think this is the heaviest presidential panel that we have had. I have a senior president of UNSA, Mr. Yamu J Burobuto. Yamu J was actually monikered Judge Yam for being a grandfather of student politics in Uganda, having served as, among others, speaker at Makerere University, but also president of UNSA 2018-2019, and is now the executive director of the Uganda Youth Network. Yam, it's always a pleasure to have you on this show.
Pleasure is mine, and to add your voice, we commiserate with fellow citizens that lost loved ones yesterday, a very unfortunate incident, but we pray that by God's grace we are all safe and do what we can to ensure that we keep even those around us safe. Like Comrade Abubaker has said, safety should be a duty and responsibility of all of us.
Yeah, thank you very much. And keeping it presidential, we are happy to have been joined by Winifred Nakandi, Your Excellency. Winifred was President UNSA 2019-2020.
2017-18.
Oh, 17-18. You actually, Burobuto succeeded you. And before that, a vice president at Chambogo University, now doing very big things to support girls. It's a pleasure to have you, Winifred.
Thank you so much, Council Matanda, also president of UNSA family. I'm glad to be on the show.
You have to sneak that.
I would also take the opportunity to commiserate with my fellow Ugandans and countrymen and women who lost their lives, who lost property in the bomb blast yesterday. It is our responsibility to be vigilant as we remain calm and call upon our security agencies to give us reports on what could have happened, but also to keep the country more secure from such prospective happenings.
Thank you, Winifred. And I told you we are keeping it presidential through and through. We are joined by His Excellency Ezra Byakutangaza. Ezra is the immediate, I don't know whether outgoing or outgoing.
Already outgoing.
And I'm not sure I have handed over yet, but is the immediate outgoing president of the Uganda National Students Association. You are welcome to the Youth Roundtable.
Thank you very much, Council Matanda, and of course, like earlier mentioned, our alumnus at the Secretariat, our National Executive Committee of UNSA. Thank you for hosting me here. Thank you to the Civic Space TV that is helping us share ideas as young people. And not any differently, I want to mourn our fellow citizens that have gone quite abruptly. It sets a lot of questions for us and the future of our country. But of course, as young people and the rest of the Ugandans, this must awaken us to make sure our future is safe, our country is safe, because not until we are sure of the safety of our country, our future is uncertain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ezra. And just fresh from the 32nd National Students Council, I would say actually what prompted this discussion. Julia Muhumuza, congratulations.
Thank
Julia walked away from the council as vice president of the Uganda National Students Association. And so we could say she's the only serving person on this panel. Julia, yeah, congratulations once again and welcome.
Thank you, Council. I'm humbled to be here once again. My name is Julia Muhumuza, the current Vice President of Uganda National Students Association. I'd like to add my voice to everyone else and send in condolences to every Ugandan that has lost a life, relative, friends. It's a time where we need to keep safe. Let's try to do whatever we can to be vigilant, avoid crowded places and all as directed by the security departments. But also today being the 17th of November, it's International Students Day across the country.
Wow.
And on behalf of UNSA, I would like to tell all the international students that we hear you, we see you, and we are here to serve with you. And make sure you have the very best experience in Uganda as you pursue education. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. This is exciting. I'd actually not noticed that today is International Students Day. Maybe that's why the producer thought we should discuss student leadership. But I'll start with you, Ezra, since you are just from the arena. Some people say that, you know, these institutions like UNSA lost their relevance long time ago. They are neither useful to the members, the students, nor even visible as the immediate outgoing president. Tell us about UNSA. Where is UNSA?
No, I think whoever thinks these institutions have lost relevance gets it wrong. Even in the past, we've seen that these institutions have been a nursery bed for young leaders in society, except that of late I realized the majority of Ugandans or people of our time mistake leadership for only political leaders. But it's no doubt that the Uganda National Students has kept on its role of nurturing young people to make sure they lead, provide credible leadership to society. In the past, UNSA has made a number of political leaders, but I'm glad to say that it's even going out of its way to even make magistrates.
Exactly.
We have EDs.
You want to go very
So I would not want to trace a lot of the background that may not be evident here. But even on this panel, we have leaders already made from the recent UNSA that people suggest that has lost relevance. Of course, the association or institutions of the kind, UNSA and its sister institution, for example, the National Youth Council, could have had some hiccups here and there, and may be informed by the status quo, other external factors that have interfered maybe with the student leadership and youth generally being diverted from what they should purpose to become and make this country. But I really want to inform or allay the fears that UNSA has lost relevance. I don't think it's so. In a life cycle of any institution, there are hiccups that come around, but it is always purposeful for the leadership to make it stand again. Not to suggest that it had fallen, but to suggest that there are hiccups around that need to be attended to and make the institution grow bigger and even more powerful.
Okay, you'll be telling us more about those hiccups in a while, but allow me now to go to Winifred. You know, we seem to be moving from an assumption that everyone knows what UNSA is. I want to believe not. I know some viewers of this show that may not actually know what UNSA is. So if you could maybe help us, give us some perspective. What is UNSA? How is it composed? Where did it start?
Yes, UNSA, just like National Youth Council, actually face a similar challenge. Not so many of their constituents know about the institutions, maybe because they are voted through an electoral college. So UNSA is the Uganda National Students Association. It comprises all post-primary students. Every student who is above primary 7 is a member of UNSA. Students in secondary school, in technical institutes, in vocational institutes, in universities, everyone that is beyond primary school. And Comrade Matanda, he has been introducing us as former presidents of UNSA. We are elected by an electoral college that comprises the 3 leaders of every university or tertiary institution. That is the guild president, guild speaker, and the female representative. It could be the gender minister or vice president or any female representative. That doesn't mean that guild president should be male. all the 3 could be female. The female position was for affirmative action. Now, those 3 plus 3 district delegates who form the DEC, who are the 3 top leaders of the DEC, or District Executive Committee, who are also the chairperson, the finance secretary, and a female representative. So that composition usually actually has less than 500 voters. I remember in my election, I got 121 votes to become president of all students in Uganda. That's the challenge. And not many students know that they actually have a president somewhere. Same thing with the National Youth Council, because the voters are usually less than 500. Yeah, but that's it about UNSA and its structures. Now, this structure also goes down to the district. There's a district executive committee from a district students council, which is made up of school councils. So it's a structure that goes down to every school in Uganda.
Oh, so the school councils in schools are a structure of UNSA?
Yes, they are.
That's to say.
Yes, in secondary schools.
And then in universities and tertiary institutions, where is UNSA?
That's the guild. That's the guild leadership. The guild president. The guild president, guild speaker. That is the UNSA structure, because the guild president and the guild speaker and the female representative form the 3 UNSA delegates of that particular institution.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've had some people call you Jaja of student politics. I think if a student leader can do anything, you have done. And so that makes me start with the question. Ezra, when I listen to him, it seems like the biggest achievement UNSA can boast of that he's speaking about is being a grooming ground. Yeah, but the motto of UNSA is we struggle for liberation. Besides just grooming leaders to go serve elsewhere, does UNSA or the student movement have any role while they are there, before they even move to other places in the governance of the country? And how do you rate or place UNSA?
Thank you, Abubaker. I must admit I am impressed by your acting skills, the way Abubaker was imagining the council in schools forming part of UNSA, but yeah, being that he's a former UNSA president, but I understand that for the benefit of our audience, he needed to stress that so that we are all at par. You can summarize during my tenure, and even now is what I believe until I am persuaded by different perceptions. I was under the impression that UNSA, one, in a general sense, the idea is that the leadership strives to contribute to advocating or ensuring that students across the country, secondary and tertiary institutions, are given the best attainable environment to pursue their academic goals. Number two, that it also tries to push for the best attainable welfare for the students in whatever institution of learning they are in. Now, they are the details of how you achieve that and the objectives of that, but in my opinion, I thought that the founders of UNSA must have thought that this should be the driving pointers for objectives and all that. Now, has UNSA achieved that or not is a question of perception. But perhaps more could have been achieved, and at different intervals, because ideally it's a 1-year term for the top leadership, for example, and even on the grassroots. And there is there is not yet a system that seems to facilitate continuity of what this regime has been working on, and then this one can. So unfortunately, or fortunately, in some instances, different leaderships within the structure do different things at a time.
So you're very famous for running the set.
Yeah, the set. Yeah.
You say it died with your regime, whatever came after. Not carry on.
And to be fair to whoever came after, the mechanism of sustaining it perhaps wasn't in place, and to be able to put together that mechanism, you don't need just 1 year. You will need a little bit of more time. So usually the leadership has to battle. What do I do? Can I do something small that can be immediately meaningful, or something, or do I concentrate on building, and you're not sure that the person that comes after you will continue with, or will be interested in continuing your idea of building. So to get back to where you first struck me, therefore the challenge of leaderships maintaining or continuing what has been done by the former leaderships is a very big challenge, and that one is a situation at the secretariat level. And before Winnie, whom I was privileged to succeed after 3 ladies had and I've even had Ezra talk about it in different platforms, and even those that were there before Winnie, I'm sure in your time, the Secretariat of UNSA is not empowered and facilitated well enough to ensure that kind of sustainability. So until that is achieved at that level, you cannot consistently therefore assess the performance of UNSA. You'd have to assess individual regimes to appreciate the significance of UNSA to the bigger students' body. Mentorship and grooming leaders for the nation is part of it, but it's just a small bit of it. Like you were talking about the Saint campaign, when we did the tour in the Eastern region, because during my time before then they had performed the worst in A-level, especially secondary school. So we went around the Eastern region and Karamoja to try to find out why. There were so many things that were beyond us. Laboratory facility, for example, in sciences, because we're interested in the area of sciences. Teachers are not there. Access to schools in areas like Ubududa, then when it rained, a teacher, wherever they were staying, might have to wait for 4 days to be able to access school again because of poor roads and things like that. Equipment in terms of laboratories and infrastructure was not there. So, and these are issues that are beyond UNSA. In those kind of situations, you can only do advocacy. And like Ezra said, it's not populist advocacy. It's not political advocacy. You write letters, you meet stakeholders that are responsible and try to impress upon them these challenges. So a lot is done behind the cameras to try and contribute to. During my time, there was a point the PS, I think, indirectly put notice to the secretary that I should not be allowed in his office again. Because almost every 2 weeks I had an issue or issues raised in his office. So there is a lot that at the leadership you do, but there's a lot that is beyond you. The small things that we could do after assessing, for example, mathematical set, it was our argument that at that time, if they were giving 20 million to honorable members of parliament to go and do consultations about the age limit, and when we did the math, there were billions and billions, yet to provide a mathematical set to every candidate, then you needed only 3 billions. And I use only 3 billions, not in the undermining of 3 billions, but in relation to what was going to be given to the MPs. So these are some of the significant small things that you can do. And indeed, many students benefited from that campaign. A mathematical set in a math paper can give you 4 marks.
Yeah.
4 marks can take you to a different grade.
Yes.
A different grade can give you a better score that qualifies you to a better school than you've been in. A better school could mean better opportunity at a better university. Better university could mean a better degree.
Wow,
better
what you have made a wonderful case, and it's easy to see that you stuck to your belief that UNSA is about students' welfare. It's easy to see that in your thinking. But allow me now go to Julia, who has just thrown herself into the arena. You have her.
Maybe I don't know if I can. You can give me just 1 minute to supplement on what, as commonly known, Jaja has just said. He made mention of something to do with the setup of UNSA in terms of response to the problem and assessment of its effectiveness. And he made mention of doing assessment in terms of not the institution, but the individual leadership. I must stress that at the assumption of office, I had a long-term strategy to make sure the institution changes direction.
By long term, you mean a year?
By long term, of course, would mean doing practicabilities in a year and leaving precedents for some other people.
Fundamental change for some sort.
For some people to carry on. But I realized the institution has been disenabled, and it responds to circumstances.
I see that you're being very choosy with your words.
I am trying to be clear so that I am not, I make no mistake here. But an institution like ours is quite very important. It has immense potential. And giving, for example, a 1-year term to a leadership of students may not allow them to respond to institutional problems. You may be made to only respond to situational problems. And for me, I must say that is the major problem. Ours, there is no institution, even a major company. If you are given an opportunity to work with the company, your questions would be, am I going to associate myself with a company that is going to last for a year? Or you'd be attracted to even an emerging company that has a very long term of progression. You know that these people have a plan to develop, and maybe we are starting with a small idea, and in just 1 year or 2 or 5 or 10, it will be a company that everyone would want to have.
Yes, Your Excellency, I'm sorry I have to cut you short because we need to hear from Julia. She needs to make her, she needs to make her.
And maybe, by the way, I forgot to congratulate my successor. Congratulations, Your Excellency. I would be very humble to hand over to you and, to see you change.
We are waiting to witness the hand of.
These are, you know what you just said may seem like something simple, but Uganda has not had that since 1962. Every time there's a change, the leaders say that the border running or already out. So possibly the young trees in the forest I was talking about are setting a good example. Maybe in
that is why I made it a point to congratulate her so that she can create precedent.
Yes, but Julia, when you listen to their excellencies, each one of them has spoken about the good, but somehow smuggled in the challenge.
Yeah.
It looks like there are so many challenges, either the secretariat or not being known, or the 1 year not being enough. So for you, why would you go to such an institution? And how did you even get to know that it exists if we are hearing that many people don't know about it? New leaders usually come, in quotes, with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. Obama said we campaign in poetry but govern in prose. So by the time you ran, you must have had an assessment of the status quo, and maybe you think there are things you can change. So it's your turn to tell us, where do you place the institution now and what can we hope for?
Oh, okay. First of all, allow me to say that I agree with the fact that new leadership comes with a lot of excitement and fire. But according to the institutional challenges, I should say those that are happening internally to us that are just coming in, it is something we we either didn't know or we did.
Already? It's barely days.
Yes. So, but how I get to know about UNSA is, the truth is, very many students do not know about UNSA. I got a chance to, I served in my secondary school in Students' Council, but I didn't know it was part of UNSA. Even at
I hope it was
university.
not in my regime.
So in university, how I get to know about UNSA is, I think you know Romulus, the good president then of MOVES, was contesting for UNSA. So that is when some of us get to know, okay, UNSA exists, what is UNSA, how do you get to participate, and later plan ahead to be a part of that leadership. So, of course, now that challenge is, I think, one of the things we are basing on as the current leadership. One, we would like to appreciate the fact that we are scattered. I was sharing with Winnie that we have in Eastern we have like 3, in North we have like 3. Like the NEC now is a bit diverse, like it's in different locations of the country,
Okay,
which would actually help the activities and programs to be regionalized. So if people say that UNSA is dying out because they don't see what it's doing, yet behind the curtains actually doing some work, I think for us we perceived it as because they don't know about it, and maybe if we can bring most of the students to know about UNSA in the first place, and also make sure that our activities and programs reach out to these people where they are in different regions, it would be key. But personally, I feel like the agenda that has pushed most of the candidates now that the new leadership is the status quo of we the students in Uganda. Right now, I think, yes, they seem to be like situational problems, but I feel like they are the basis for the leadership. When you talk about now, it is too much for us to focus on only how are we going to work on the institution itself, which is something to address. But I feel like there is so much, there are many questions in the students' fraternity, there are very many concerns, right from when schools will resume, many are dropping out, the teenage pregnancies, all that is rotating around the students' fraternity. So the new leadership is really inspired and motivated by the situational challenges, which are really giving us energy to be advocates and try to impact on the lives of the students in this case.
Wow, interesting. I hope that you get us inspired as we go along. But maybe to bring in some of the things that I've mentioned, one of the things they all seem to agree on is that a year is not enough. I find that to be escapist. People have done things in weeks, in months. Do you share in the argument that maybe the issue is actually that a year is too short? Would you push for, some leaders in the past have pushed for an extension of 2 or 3 years?
I honestly beg to disagree, because even with other structures of students' leadership, you see it's usually 1 year. And if we push for more, that means, okay, if I stood in my final year, I get to represent students even when I'm not a student, which should not be the case. Because
if you're performing, why not?
No, I feel like the fact that I'm already inclined to the students' fraternity makes me relate more with what exactly they're going on. But again, my concern would be if we can stick by 1 year, we just need to have that kind of trend, which they emphasize that. For example, I realized the outgoing leadership was working on a project for the girl child. If we can identify where has this leadership left off, what did they have in plan, what do we have in plan, harmonize, start from there. Even if they give you 5 years, you see, when you interact with MPs, they also tell you the reason I'm going back, 5 years were not enough. So I feel like whatever time frame you have for leadership, you can use it to create an impact. For students' leadership, we have very limited time, minimal time of being a student, because we are not students forever, unlike other politics. So if we can harmonize how like leadership transitions and get to understand where did these people leave off, where do we start from, how do we harmonize it with the agenda, carry on the next leadership from there henceforth.
So how do you think that can happen? Because it's exactly what President Emeritus Yamu brings on the table. He says, for example, maybe now I can accept that I was at UNSA. One of the ideas I had was setting up a national students resource center.
Oh, yeah.
But that kind of thing is not something you can do. By the way, that 1 year is not even 1 year, it's about 8 months.
True.
It's not something you can do in about 8 months. So it's our desire, all of us, to have that continuity. But how can that happen?
One, for us, the incoming leadership, one, we wanted to try as much as we can to see if we can bring together the previous leadership and try to understand right from the initiation of this program, what was the agenda, what are some of the projects that were dropped that could actually make sense. And if it cannot be built within the current leadership, it can always be supported by the alumnus, because your role is to continuously oversee what we are doing and guide. So if some of these projects that require sustainability, projects that need to be made now, like the resource center, some Adu student circle, some such projects need like really you need to have a sustainable plan, because it's not something you're going to build in months, or it has to carry on. So if we have that kind of collective effort with everyone that leaves, you realize that it can still guide the structures of formation of these kinds of projects.
Okay, maybe Rebecca, just to correct something.
Yeah, please.
First, according to the UNSA constitution, the one that I remember, Julia might have until the 31st of December.
Exactly.
According to the law, Julia has until 31st December 2021. Now, the president is talking about of engagement alone might need more than 31st December 2021. But
Even
that being
the process
said,
of swearing in alone.
yeah, but that being said, the point that I wanted to rectify, it's not that 1 year is not enough, and it's not my position. But and I'm glad that finally you came to the real question, in my opinion, which is how do we sustain this? And I go back to the issue, and I want to thank Civic Space and the producer for coming up with this topic. And I hope that stakeholders are listening, because we need to stress the importance of empowering the Secretariat of UNSA. Why? Well, the question that you're interrogating, how do we sustain this? And that Julia was trying to marry with the guild leaderships at universities.
Yes.
They have the dean of students who has a contract of 4 years and another 4 years and another 4 years, and a whole structure of management that facilitates the continuity of particular programs they know are key to whichever student, both the circle in, circle out.
Yes.
Health Week, Justice Week, every other year there are things that are sustainably carried over, that even when you budget, the dean of students will tell you, I don't see the money for the Justice Week. I don't see money for the Gender Week. I don't see money for the Health Week. Now, that means that some programs continue to be sustainably moved on, whether it's 1 year or not. The Secretariat, when I was there, didn't have transportation means. You're talking about 156 districts. How do you provide leadership to 156 districts when you can't even move that easily and conveniently within Kampala? Because if you don't have transportation means, how do you supervise? How do you monitor? How do you coordinate the country? And you're talking about the National Secretariat. You have 3 computers in the office. We are talking about digital migration. You have 3 staff in the National Secretariat. So how can we, for example, National Resource Center that your regime was talking about, if papers plan had been put in place, MOU signed with particular people, it would be now the duty of the Secretariat to say, hey, whoever came after you, there is this project running, this is the blueprint, you need to continue moving like this. So, Secretariat, until it is helped and facilitated proper, UNSA as an institution will continue to falter. Once in a while, you'll have individuals that seemingly are doing things and what, but consistently you will not have the consistency.
Thank you. I see that Winnie is badging to come in, and as you come in, I would like, because one of the things you mentioned in your first submission was that many students don't even know that this body exists.
Yes.
And we have since now heard that maybe one of the issues is a weak secretariat. So maybe you can help us speak to what's the problem? Why is that he's describing not available?
Yes.
Is it you politicians want to change secretariat at every point? Is there a particular maybe stakeholder that you think is not doing what they're supposed to do?
Thank you so much. Now, UNSA, just like Comrade Yam here was saying, in university we have the Dean of Students who is in charge of the guild leadership and their welfare, what they do. Right, I remember in Chambogo University when we have our projects as the guild, even if some of this implementation comes up near the end of our tenure, we're sure that project will succeed. Even if we have another leadership in office, our project will still stand. I mean, the budget is still existent, and it is intact. No one will tamper with it. Now, UNSA Secretariat, we have, I don't know if this problem is still existent at UNSA. The powers of NEC have to be checked. The UNSA constitution is amended by the National Students' Council, and Students' Council never sits for anything other than elections, usually.
Yeah, sure.
Now, when the National Students' Council has only come for elections, there are these politicians. Politicians can easily hoodwink the public. They hoodwinked some country into a Brexit, and then they wanted to come back. So now there is a politician who will come maybe standing for Speaker of UNSA, and then they say our problem is the constitution. We need to change this, we need to change this. Now you amend the constitution and it gives someone or some office so much power, yet that person is going to hold an office for a very short time. Now, like all of us are complaining here, if Secretariat was empowered, they had a clear budget, they had a clear spending strategy, they had a clear budget, everything would be in order. You see, I don't actually agree with the issue of extending UNSA leadership tenure from 1 year to term to from 1 year. Because who contests for UNSA leadership anyway? It is the people from the guild.
I've had 40 years, but people are still saying.
Exactly, it's not enough. The guild presidency or the guild leadership at different institutions lasts only 1 year. We do not have a single institution, I do not know about it, where it's over a year. And the National Youth Council leadership is 5 years, because even the delegates or the constituents hold their offices for 5 years. Now, the guild presidency, you see when someone enters university in first year, not so many people stand, and in second year, they're standing for office, and that's the opportunity they have to stand for UNSA leadership. And now the issue of students knowing or not knowing about
before
UNSA.
You go there,
Yes.
We still want some more of you on the question of the Secretariat.
Yeah.
You have almost restated what Yam said, but we're interested, for example, you say the dean has a clear budget why is this not in UNSA? Why doesn't UNSA have a...
UNSA lacks clear penalties, I should say. Because you see there are district secretariats, which district coordinators are tasked with collecting money from secondary schools in the district.
UNSA gets 5 million from government per quarter.
Now, the assumption is students actually pay money. I know students who say, I know people, even the other day Isabella was saying, I used to pay money in UNSA subscription. Now students actually pay money. But in most cases, the district coordinators do not report this money.
Where do these students pay? Is there like an account? They give it to the coordinators?
No, students pay money from, part of their school fees, there's development fee or UNSA fee, church fees. And then the school has to pay its annual subscription to UNSA.
Through what?
Now the school does not come to the UNSA National Secretariat. Now this is where the district secretariat comes in. Like there are schools in Wachiso district, and the schools in Wachiso have to pay to the district secretariat, which is led by the district coordinators. And the assumption is there is an account for district. But you see, UNSA has been taken over by what these people, young people call the mafia, and now it happens that now everyone is a mafioso or is part of some mafia somewhere. Because I remember before I entered UNSA, as we were paying, this is very unfortunate to say, but as Chambogo University was going to pay for subscription, it happened that the letter that came to Chambogo University asking for subscription actually had a fake account.
Wow. In the names of UNSA?
Exactly. It had an account in the names of Uganda National Students Association, same bank, but different bank account number. Now, this is done by people in secretariat, but usually not in national secretariat, usually in district secretariat, like everyone somehow owns a portion in UNSA. It's not so many power centers. So there is a time when you have about 5 accounts and people are paying for 2 different accounts. Some coordinators who've been relieved of their duties maintain their accounts, and they continue collecting money from secondary schools and universities and institutions around their district. So it so happens that people at National Secretariat, the UNSA president at NEC, and then the executive secretary and the secretariat do not have resources to continue with these programs of the previous leadership, but also to finance the programs of the new leadership. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So allow me to go to Ezra. These are very scathing allegations, and I don't know whether this is the institution you have been leading.
But just
yes.
let me just finish this before Ezra comes in. All of us here have been talking about the issue of students not knowing UNSA. I don't think it would be a great deal, students not knowing UNSA, because students do not come to UNSA. Students, like the students of, for example, Gayaza, go to the Students' Council of Gayaza. The students of Chambogo have a minister, have a guild speaker, have GRCs in Chambogo.
Yes.
Yes. Now, it is important for the student leaders to know that there is a body called UNSA and what it can do. Like Jajayam carried on the mathematical set campaign.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So as the executive director of the Uganda Youth Network, yes. You forget to mention that. Now,
I actually did.
Yes, okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, there was the mathematical sets campaign, and it benefited people. In my regime, for us, our regime was actually, unfortunately, marred with court cases. It was almost a full year of court cases. It's the infamous Akampa time.
Injunction.
Yeah, the court injunction. But in the small space where we were fortunate to lead, I remember that is a time where there is a ministerial policy statement by the Ministry of Education that actually said that the 5 billion meant for the student loan scheme was not going to be provided the next financial year, because the reason was ministers had to go abroad to attend conferences. And now this is where our leadership comes in. Not many students, ordinary students, a student in secondary school in Budaka or in IUI Mbale or in IUEA in Kansanga might not know that there is something being done. But as UNSA president, with my NEC, I wrote a letter to the committee, to the Committee on Education, Parliamentary Committee on Education. It was chaired then by Honorable Koni Nakayenze Galiwango. And we wanted to meet them. And the chairperson of the committee wrote back to me, and we scheduled a date to meet. But then the court injunction came in. But again, we kept pushing, and I'm glad to report that the Minister of Education, the First Lady, Kataha, came out because of our cry, because of our persistent push for this money for this budget to be reinstated. The minister said, okay, this money will be provided. Now that was leadership, that was advocacy, that someone might not know down there where they reside, but if that money was going to be taken away, a young person who would have benefited from UPE some time back, then USE, and their only hope right now is in the loan scheme, was saved. And now they're blossoming. Maybe they went to medical school and studied because of the advocacy that we did then. So whether or not people know about it, the national advocacy, the advocacy that Julia now is about to offer, will still benefit all people.
Oh, I like that, and I think, well, I had planned that each one of you may have to account for your regime. I like that it's coming out naturally. But just one final thought on that. There was a time in this country when UNSA had a running students magazine, and now that students are very tech savvy, you would think that there would be a very serious Twitter handle for students, a very serious Facebook page or group or hashtags for campaigns. You would think maybe there's a magazine or blog or website. Or in terms of communication, even when some of those actions may be very high level for an ordinary student in a school, is there enough work at that level for communication?
I can say it has reduced, because every leadership comes with its own vibe. But then, almost, because every leadership has been coming with its own secretariat, because those things should be done by a secretariat. We should not, like this business of saying, okay, the publicity secretary is handing over, but he still has our Twitter passwords, you know. Just like last week, I was seeing someone rallying us to follow our Twitter page, and I felt very bad, because on my, actually, I had to go to my Twitter profile and remove everything UNSA I put, because I put a former president of UNSA and tagged that UNSA that I knew. And then here we are, someone is rallying us to follow another Twitter profile or Facebook page, which is very unfortunate. Now it brings us back to the question of empowering the secretariat and checking the powers of NEC, because these leaders here, all us, we've usually been the source of the problems. When you come in, you want this to be done, this another. There must be someone to control what you do and actually show you that this has already been done this way, and you can make your contribution, but this is the direction that it's taking.
Interesting. We are about to engage another gear to go national, but before we do, maybe also need an opportunity to account. I had some people before the show calling you the longest serving UNSA president. What was happening? Did COVID deplete you guys completely, or did someone happen?
Before I go to that question, accounting, our law in the land here allows, and this is in line with what Comrade Julian and all other colleagues were saying about not agreeing with someone serving for more than for more than a year. My question is, the question should be starting when? Because I also agree with the position that after being a student, you're not fit enough to be a student leader. But what we've seen, even in some of our guild constitutions, that they bar a year one student, for example, from participating in guild elections. The school councils we are talking about, not until someone is senior, is in P5, and they can become assistant head boy, or they want to reason that leadership should begin from a certain level.
Yes.
And some group of young people are disenfranchised, which is very unfortunate. So for me, I think if the Republic of Uganda allows a senior six leaver to become a president of the Republic of Uganda, which I think is fit enough, why can't someone in their first year of school or of university, or even in the first year of college, become president of UNSA? So that if we can put that as one of the requirements, that for you, if you must serve the 2 years, please run for presidency in your first year. So talking about, before I go to the accountability.
Yes, but even on that, where an 18-year-old senior six vacants can become president of Uganda. But
Muhumuza was about to become president.
So the question is, what are the chances that a year one will become a guild president in their university?
And that is now a national question that you've posed. It's just not about UNSA.
Yes.
A president does not run a country as an individual. There should be institutions in place that should guide presidency.
Yeah, but you also need to have something in you. You are not just going to come and say...
By the time a senior six leaver comes out and the public finds them worthy to become president, are you doubting the public opinion? Is that what you seem to suggest? I think not. By the time this person comes out, the hand has been voted. I think maybe they could lack the expertise, but the institutions in place that have been there over time can shape them to become even better.
Okay, you seem to have a say, yes.
I want to stop that, to leave that at that, but I still think my colleagues here and myself have been talking about how incapable the secretariat is, how the students, now Comrade Nakandi brings in an issue of check the powers of NEC, and Comrade Jaja just mentioned something I wanted to tell Julian, that as it stands now, their term ends on 31st of December. So they have less than a month in office. So that will attract a lot of uncertainty. Like Nakandi was saying, some of us have been, the president calls them weevils. Some of our society has been penetrated by some weevils who do not appreciate progress. Now, they will take opportunity to bar my colleagues here from doing work.
You speak very certainly.
I don't
You
know.
the
I
plot.
know because it is a trend. It has been a trend. So I know that
The
somehow
mafia still
some
exists.
people will be attracted to sit on table if you must still be called a vice president of UNSA, because like she, as innocent as she sounds, she comes out very objective to, you know, change the status quo. So with that whole zeal she comes with, someone is going to negotiate with her to make sure she can do one or two things before she's thrown out of office, or she chooses to take another path, just remain unnoticed, but she's there.
Did
So
this
it is
happen to you?
It is very unfortunate. No. Although I remember that at some point, because I was coming to the question of accountability.
Yes,
now.
yes,
Now
please
this leads me to the question of accountability. At the assumption of office, my colleague here, the 30th NEC, had been in court for the last 2 years. And please note that our council, if it was a council anyway, was chaired by the PS of the Ministry of Education on court orders. So when we assumed office, I realized that whereas there were situational problems that we had to attend to, which we did, I also noticed that for the future of this institution, we needed to create precedent, set precedent for people to follow and have the powers or easily tackle the institutional problems. And on that court order, there was also a ruling that UNSA should be turned to a statutory body, which to me, well, that would partly solve the problems, but I think it would want more than just becoming a statutory body, but seek for us to transition from just an association to a council established by an act of parliament, independent of maybe the state, but established by the act of parliament. And of course, it was, if the secretariat was empowered at the time, I'm sure I would have achieved this. But unfortunately, and I'm sure partly because of maybe the inability of the secretariat, but also because this COVID came in and the priorities changed. But otherwise, we as the 31st NEC set out to make sure we negotiated for an act of parliament established in UNSA that would give us power, would give us
a strong secretariat,
a strong negotiation, the power to negotiate.
The budget.
Now, how did we? Because I have been on many discussions, and people seem to pin UNSA. And very soon, I was just sharing with you before we came to the show that the speaker of the Ugandan National Students Association, who is now current, who came out, passed as unopposed. Are we really nurturing leadership? So I am looking at UNSA being forsaken by students, yet it should have been used as an opportunity to make other students better, but also to groom, like we said in the start, to groom leadership. So we set out, we did our first draft, what we think as the NEC, of course consulted the student councils, and said, well, there is this ruling here. What do you think? We gave them our position because we had already had the feel of what the National Executive Committee can do.
Yes.
We knew that there was a requirement in the law, in our constitution, that we convene council 1 or 2 times in a year. But is it practical? Does it happen? In how much time has it happened? Not in about 5 years, it had not happened that council was held to discuss issues affecting students. So we initiated that. We met the minister, and as I speak, I think there is a correspondence at the Attorney General's office in the same regard. We handed over that, and of course that is due for me to inform the new NEC, so that they can follow up. But again, like I said, I mean, anyone would want, if I met me who knows the constitution of UNSA, I don't think the new NEC would convince me legally that they are NEC after 31st. So because of that feeling or that background, and some people even in the ministries have used it as an opportunity to bar student advocacy, you know. So For me, I think honorable colleagues and friends to UNSA and friends or patriots who want to see this country and our generation prosper and turn around what the earlier generations have not done, we need to build capacity of young people to come out and reason together with the current generation.
Thank you. We are about actually to bring this conversation to an end. And we are going to engage a national gear, but you have introduced a very interesting twist to this conversation, which for me could still count for accountability. You seem to have decided to go big, deal with the fundamental issues. And I was actually preparing this question for Julia to say if indeed subscriptions are not reaching and there's no structure, why not abandon everything in a manifesto and just sort that one thing? Which seems to be the voice, Ezra, that you bring on board with the question of a statutory body. This is a debate that has lacked in UNSA for eons. And I would want to hear from you, Julia, as the fresh blood, if this is something you have considered either individually or as a team, the whole debate of turning the Uganda National Students Association into a statutory body. Well, UNSA is established by an act of parliament, the Education Act, yes, but because it's not a statutory body, there are some things. It has no vote. Yamu here was joking about the 5 million per quarter, which is laughable. Is this something you people have considered or would consider to allow UNSA to become a statutory body? Of course, those who are against it say that would swallow you and you know, make you just part of the state apparatus. Yeah, but
actually the opposite makes it even worse.
Let's hear. Is this something you might consider?
Yeah, sure. It's something that we have heard from the elders, and it's something that we have comprehensively invested in studying and to start from where they stopped, because we believe it will help us to streamline the institutional challenges and give us a better platform.
Are you not concerned that the motto of the body being we struggle for liberation, and it's not strange to know that in history student movements or students are by nature usually opposition leaning because they are progressive, they are seeking to change the status quo. Do you think that kind of thing will happen when the body is a statutory?
I don't think so. I still feel you can still advocate and push for the agenda as long as you are. I don't know. There is something I usually say. I think before we get to activism, usually that's where the students' movement gets radical. We can do the advocacy, and none of whatever you're saying can stop advocacy. But again, still, where we are now, like Ezra said, it's worse off, because what's the point of us advocating, having an agenda to improve the status quo of students' fraternity, but it's all always in vain because of the institutional challenges. Yeah, so I really believe it would be an advantage.
Okay, so we are going to have a final round, and we're engaging the national gear, but if anything came through when your turn comes, feel free to have a view on it. Uganda now is struggling with a number of things, just like any other society. We have issues of security, bomb blasts, Bijambia. We have issues of the economy struggling, the blows from COVID-19. She already hinted on some of the issues in education. You know, it has been a long time. The system is clogged. Some people have dropped out. Nakandi here under her Mischana Foundation is struggling issues with like pads and all that. So it seems like there is a challenge and problem everywhere you look. At the national level, the governance question. Where is the place for the student movement? Where is the place for UNSA in the national governance question? Is there any relationship, and is there anything student leaders can be upbeat for?
Yeah, like you said, which institution is not having this discussion? Maybe apart from Uganda Youth Network, that
Yes,
that I'm sure sooner than later we
shall flash a light on it soon.
yeah. But does the student movement have a position in the country? The first thing, as a nation, we are in a very for the lack of better words, tricky period. Yes, there is COVID-19. At the time, even when our economy, according to the statistics, was still struggling, we were hit with COVID-19. But also the governance question. There's been a system in governance for 35 years and counting, and one leader, therefore, at the real top. Now, the question of what it has done or not done is again a question of perception, but what is not in doubt is that what it has done or not done, definitely the nation is fatigued in the sense of the monotony of 35 years and counting. And that has a very big impact on how society operates or is moved. What am I saying? That it would be unfair to think that UNSA can all of a sudden resurrect, revamp, jumpstart, and become what it is supposed to be within the bigger existing circumstances. It would be fantasy, really. And so you'll have moments where it seems to be resurrecting and moments where, but in the grand scheme of things, because it's a national body, so unless the governance matters at the national level are streamlined in the view of appreciating its relevance, it just cannot be relevant. I'm trying to...
You're being very philosophical, and I'll let you be.
I'm trying to be... I do not want to turn our discussion controversial. I'm trying to keep it to the discussion of a student body, but by incorporating in the national lens that you bring in. However, if we were discussing the national situation in regards to the student body, my submission could have been different, but we are discussing the student body in regards to the national picture. So, what is the view of the Minister of Education on UNSA? What is the view of the President on UNSA and education at large? What are the prevailing circumstances in the whole government setup? What's the view of the Finance Minister? What's the view of the Leader of Opposition? What's the view of the Prime Minister? These are things that matter to the functioning of UNSA. You might not see it, but these are things that matter at a grand scale. So until they are right, you cannot have a sustainable, progressive, impactful student movement. Now, how does the student movement come in? How many are alive to the fact that we can do better? How many are alive that we can detach ourselves from who has this interest and the other and simply address the student interest and keep our participation, advocacy, activism, call it whatever you want, focused on the student issue?
Yes.
So if you can answer that question and organize that number, then we can have... Now I know you're going to ask me, how do you organize that?
No. I actually don't intend to ask, because I think you have been philosophical, but very apt in your submission.
Maybe the subscription one.
Yes.
It's not... It might not necessarily easily, maybe, and like I said, different regimes at a time. Maybe during Winnie's time, people were paying. In my time, very few were paying. But even the ones that were paying, you see, UP is paying UNSA fee. But this school is saying, government, you're giving us little money. We don't have equipment in laboratory labs. Teachers are not being facilitated well. Then you're saying that we release UNSA money. So when the headmaster says, I have bought chalk, when you go to claim for for UNSA money. And the headmaster says, you see, government sent us little money. So in the UNSA money, even when we know it is yours, we have bought chalk, we have bought toilet papers for
After all, the
our
money is to
latrines.
make students
So after
better.
all,
Yeah.
Students'
the
welfare.
students'
You're
welfare.
campaigning for sex
Yes,
and we've bought
yes,
them.
yes. So what do you say to the head teacher that to give me the money?
Thank
leave
you,
the chalk?
thank you. Your submissions are getting more interesting, but unfortunately our time is up. So I will have to limit it at that. Hear from the comrades and we wind this conversation up. But Winnie, yes, the national question. I know that at Mischana you're leading campaigns around padding girls and all these things. Maybe some of these things should be spearheaded by UNSA and the National Youth Council. Where's the missing link and how can we quickly connect it?
Yeah, you know, when young people get into leadership, you see, even these campaigns that we're doing at Mischana, you might find that we're not able to do. I wasn't able to do them as UNSA president. When you're into when you're occupying some political spaces, two things. Number one, you don't want to be in the wrong books of the powers that be. You don't want to antagonize the powers that be, for your own safety anyway. And also, sometimes you're not equipped, you're not fun, you don't have enough equipment or money or manpower. But I would really urge the leadership of UNSA to take on some of these campaigns. Although at individual level, I think everyone, wherever they are, needs to play a role in keeping our children safe. Now this, I'm imploring the new students' leadership at different levels. UNSA, I know Makere has just elected their leadership at different levels. The challenges facing students across the country are similar. They differ in context, but they are similar. And I would like really to implore them to advocate for the students' welfare better. But also, you know, we have issues right now. We have COVID-19, we have teenage pregnancy. So many of our students are not going back to school. I'm also a member of the National Youth Council from PG District. And in PG, just in Buwama Town Council, Buwama Sub-County where I come from, over 1,800 girls victims of teenage pregnancy in a space of 1 year. And that's the recorded number. Now, those are the ones that have gone to hospital or health centers for antenatal care. So many are out there, not recorded and not known about. So we have this very big elephant in the room called teenage pregnancy. It is threatening our literacy levels. And believe me, these next 2 to 5 years, there's going to be a gap of young people who are not going to be able to attain education because they fell out along the way. Maybe they got pregnant. And okay, this is a UNSA conversation, but now I would really want to pass this on to the parents, because UNSA is a student's body and parents are major stakeholders. If you're a parent out there, your daughter is 13 or 15 and she gets pregnant, please don't marry her off. We have this problem, and I really hope whichever way the young leaders can stand up for their fellow young people. Many parents are marrying off their children because they have gotten pregnant. They are telling them, okay, you go and live with your husband. I know someone personally who gave birth at 12 years by cesarean section, and right now she is staying with the husband. I mean, a very irresponsible man who has a wife who could have a sexual relationship with a 12-year-old, but the family thinks this man is responsible because he used to give them upkeep when the girl was pregnant. And now this girl is going to have 4 children by the time she makes 18. So we really have this very, very big national challenge, and I would really like to implore all forces, where they are, UNSA, the guild leadership, because, you know, we have these communities around universities. Makere has a slum around, Chambogo has a banda slum around, and whatever the students' leadership can do to really bring about positive change in their community, I really trust that change will be felt and it will really guide this nation.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just to stress that I'm actually a product of a teenage pregnancy. but I
Oh.
can report that my mother
Went
had
back
to
to
go back
school.
to school.
Exactly.
And this was in the early 90s, so it's something that's really possible. You can
Yeah.
save the mother and the
It
child.
is really
And
important.
I'm here as evidence. Yes, Ezra.
And you're a magistrate.
Yes. Yeah, Ezra, we are speaking to the national conversation, and I don't know why I think that you could speak to the security issue. We just had bomb blasts yesterday. Is there anything students can do or need to reflect on in the wake of this maybe a governance challenge? We don't know yet.
Yeah, certainly yes. Certainly.
They
Yes.
have always told me that I is a security operative. I didn't believe. Now I see things are starting to follow you.
Naturally.
No, but I'm joking. I'm just.
Well,
Yes.
I believe so because the current leadership is a product of student movement. Elsewhere in Africa, you know that the late Muammar Gaddafi started his movement as a student leader, and many other revolutions in Africa that were informed by student movements. So in the wake of this insecurity and many other things, you just got me off a point I wanted to make. But you know, I have a background, I'm an economist, and for me, all these things speak economics. All the things we've discussed speak economics, and even the insecurity itself
Yes.
speak economy.
Feel free to speak from that angle. We like depth on the youth
I
roundtable.
want to speak from that perspective. Nakandi here was talking about the teenage pregnancy. Those are societal challenges brought about by poverty.
Yeah.
UNSA, we are struggling and debating. We shouldn't be debating the relevance of UNSA. It's just because it has been economically disempowered, and undoubtedly it would not do much. And some people would, you know, some leaders have said that if you ask about something, what someone is doing, then it's definite that they're doing nothing. So indirectly, as we hold the discussion of what is UNSA, you're indirectly saying UNSA is not doing anything. So for me, I think we have an economic problem. The country is struggling with insecurity because, yes, perhaps not solely economic, but majorly so. We're discussing UNSA because there is somehow economically.
Yeah, so maybe quicker as an economist, you could help us.
So breaking down,
Yeah.
maybe until police tells us about who are these people. But from the layman, which is not, we don't have security background to analyze exactly who until investigations are concluded, and maybe we have some information about that. But our analysis as economists, it's most obvious that maybe an 80-year or 50-year person who is looking after some kids coming up may not engage in
suicide bombing.
It could be most likely young people. And I also don't think you, a magistrate, who thinks about revolutionizing the judicial arm of this country and other ways, may think of going for a suicide bombing. I don't think so. Even when they are checking, you realize that if they are at a checkpoint, if you come dressed smartly, someone will mistake you for being responsible. And sometimes you may not be.
Yeah, that's true.
So I want to imagine that we need to, if we are talking about security, people will not even see the relevance of being secure if they do not have a livelihood. Young people and UNSA at that level, people do not appreciate the future. We are here, we are former UNSA presidents, most of us are graduates, but the future has still remained uncertain. So what message will UNSA pass on? You know, back then we used to be told the future is bright, education is the key to success, all those things, and you have seen people making jokes out of these statements. But then they made meaning for us because we looked up to people who had thrived because of education.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ezra, to bring you back. If you could just give us a few insights on how students can help Uganda come out of this situation.
First of all, it is mindset change. And that's why I brought in the aspect of economics. The mindset cannot change if there is nothing practical that they can look at.
So stakeholders should look in that
Stakeholders must
direction.
come. Development partners, government, who have a long term. For example, if we are talking about the Vision 2040, and you're talking about students, everyone being attaining a reasonable percentage of employability, we're talking about all these good roads, but they are not here in 2021. How would you think someone would embrace the Vision 2040? So I think UNSA, institutional challenges of UNSA first must be sorted, and now this UNSA will be empowered with that strong basis to think of a strategic direction that young people of this country should look at and drive them to that. Unless that is done, I think, and by the way, you can agree with me in your time, now not as a moderator, but former alumnus, you know that many people have taken advantage of such leadership, and we have different versions of life. Yes, it's okay to disagree. I liked some statement when I listened to the Capital Gang, and on one show, one of the panelists said, you can disagree politically, but you do not detest your country. Yes, we can have one uniform strategic vision for where we want to see our country, but disagree politically. So if that vision is propagated in the young people, that is found better by UNSA, and then they make that drive, it would be important.
Thank you. I like that you're making a case for some money in our pockets. Yes, Julia, you have an opportunity to speak last, to have the final word. And since you're taking on the reins, maybe you should speak some life into us, some hope. And we conclude this show.
Hope regarding
the contribution student leaders or students can make dealing with
bonus that we were giving last remarks. I hope
maybe you can give us one minute for us
after Julia.
if you promise that you really stick to it, and
sure.
Nakandi already did that, the two of you could have 30 seconds, but our time is really up.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me again, and I just want to tell the entire students fraternity that the current leadership is willing to learn from our elders, and we are really, really determined to serve the students. We are willing to hear you out, reach out to you, find what is affecting you, advocate, and we are willing to bring down all the programs to the different regions. So in the end, all we want to see is the next leadership coming in, because we are operating in a time that has very many challenges. You want to tackle teenage pregnancies. Lately, I saw there is prevalence of AIDS has
shut up.
Yes. So of course, students' leadership would have to play a part, as we are still thinking about that now. Security, schools. What does the leadership have to say on that? So as the leadership, we are willing to work with all the different student leaders at all levels to ensure that we move together, we use the collective effort to push the agenda of the entire students' fraternity.
Thank you. In about 30 seconds, Ezra, you could go first, then Yamu will close it.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the Youth Roundtable. I just have a word to the young people of this country. You can start where you are. I joined Makerere University and chose to provide leadership, even when circumstances then and the history then may seem not to be favorable enough. I insisted and gave leadership, and here I am. And now Julia keeps referring to me as an elder.
Senior, yes.
It feels well. I wish one day I can become someone better. And when I exit, I can have the same feeling.
Yes.
But to the young people, this country belongs to us more than anyone else. And that I insist, it belongs to us more than anyone else. Let's start where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll take one as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Politicians.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. The young people, especially students now, let us love our country, but let us love our institutions. I see young people protesting and then intentionally like burning down cars in the university, breaking window panes. Let us love our institutions. I mean, that's your alma mater. That's where you'll be. You're a graduate of that university all your life. So please keep your institution intact. It is okay to to show your dissatisfaction,
Don't
but
detest the country.
do not detest the country, do not destroy your institution.
Use a red card.
Yeah.
Yes, finally, the
Yeah,
grandfather.
maybe
Yes.
guidance to Julia. To be fair, even when we were not able to do very many things, but the Minister of Education was very cooperative to our time, and I thought that she had some goodwill for the student body, but challenged by certain circumstances also, so you might need to utilize her. That being said, I'm a student of Masters in Foreign Relations and Diplomacy, and also Public Policy and Governance at different institutions I won't say here. So my message to fellow students, we have lost a lot of time, especially our young sisters in secondary school, 2 years, but keep the hope alive. A game is made out of friction. Human beings, if they understand the lessons from their trials, usually come out better. So don't lose hope on your dreams. Keep believing in yourself and try to encourage each other so that we can all come out of this COVID-19 situation still holding to our dreams. Thank you very much. God bless.
Yes, thank you very much, Yam. Thank you, Nakandi. Thank you, Ezra. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for sparing time to come and share with us your knowledge and your experience. To you, our viewers, ours is to offer analysis, to honestly speak from our experiences. Here it's mostly talk, but analytical and vibrant talk. The action lies with you. So we invite you to participate in these conversations, but more than that, to act on the recommendations that come through here. And as usual, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow our pages on Twitter, on Facebook, participate in these conversations, and don't miss any show. See you next time. Bye.